10 seaside towns in England that still feel like a 1960s British holiday. Somewhere in England right now, a man in a flat cap is eating chips from a paper bag, standing on a seafront that has not changed since his father stood in the same spot in 1963. He is not doing it ironically, he is just having his lunch. The British seaside holiday is supposed to be dead. Every travel writer, every Sunday supplement, every property programme has told you that. What they have not told you is that 10 towns never received that memo. No artisan coffee, no rebranding, no Instagram strategy, just wooden pier railings, the smell of vinegar on cold wind, and landladies who still serve breakfast at 8:30 because that is when breakfast is. Wait until you see number 1, a village so unchanged that the BBC arrived to film a 1960s period drama and left without altering a single shopfront. These 10 towns exist, they are accessible, and they are hiding in plain sight. Number 10, Wythensea, East Yorkshire, population approximately 6,200, about 18 miles from Hull, roughly 30 minutes drive. Median terraced house price between £90,000 and £140,000. No direct rail link. The nearest A&E is in Hull. Here is what makes Wythensea genuinely extraordinary. There is a lighthouse standing in the middle of the high street, not near the sea, not on a cliff, right in the town centre, surrounded by shops, completely landlocked. The harbour it once guided ships into was swallowed by coastal erosion in the 1890s. The sea simply ate the coastline until the lighthouse had nothing left to watch over. It has been standing there ever since. Still proud, still tall. Now housing a small museum that most of the town walks past without a second thought. That is Wythensea in a single image. Something magnificent that stopped being remarkable because it just became part of ordinary life. You hear wind first. Always the wind, off the North Sea, carrying fine salt grit that settles on your lips. Then gulls. Then the sound of a child somewhere near the amusements. The amusements themselves are still 2p machines and penny pushers, exactly as they were when your parents fished coins from their pockets and lined them up on the glass. The seafront smells of salt and old frying oil. Concrete shelters face the grey water with the patient acceptance of people who made peace with the weather decades ago and simply kept coming anyway. I talked to a retired fisherman in his late 60s who has lived here his entire life. He told me Wythensea is not a town people discover. It is a town people return to. His grandchildren visit from Leeds, and within an hour they are on the beach doing exactly what he did at their age and what his father did before him. No Wi-Fi, no agenda. Just the sea and the chips and the 2p machines. He told me the thing that moves him most is that nobody tried to preserve any of it. It just survived on its own because it was too honest to pretend, to be something else. The trade-off is real. There is very limited employment beyond seasonal work and basic services. Hull draws away most professional opportunity. The town feels emptier than it should for its size, particularly between October and Easter. Property is genuinely affordable because demand is genuinely low, and the coastal erosion threat is not abstract. Some streets that existed within living memory are now under the North Sea. But for retirees wanting affordable seaside living without the performance, for families wanting an old-fashioned English beach holiday that does not cost a week's wages, for anyone who finds something deeply comforting in places that simply refuse to dress themselves up for visitors, Wythensea delivers. A landlocked lighthouse on a high street, a 2p machine on a seafront nobody polished. The British seaside the way it always was. Still there, still working, waiting for people who remember it. Number 9. Sheringham, North Norfolk. Population approximately 7,400. About 26 miles from Norwich, roughly 45 minutes drive. Median terraced house price between £200,000 and £280,000. Served by the Bittern line from Norwich. Here is what makes Sheringham genuinely special. The North Norfolk Railway, known locally as the Poppy Line, still runs steam engines between Sheringham Station and Holt on original 1960s infrastructure. The station has not been modernised. The platform has the same hand-painted signs, the same wooden benches worn smooth by decades of waiting passengers, the same deep smell of oil and steam that it carried when this was not a heritage experience, but simply how you got somewhere. The same family has run donkey rides on the beach since 1955, under the same licence, on the same stretch of sand. You hear the steam whistle before you see the train. Then the smell reaches you, coal smoke and hot iron, and for a moment the decades between you and your grandparents' childhood feel like they could be negotiated. The beach is shingle and sand. The crab stalls sell crabs that came off boats you can watch coming in across the water. The lobster pub still has its snug bar intact, still dark and low-ceilinged, still smelling of carpet and real ale, never opened up into the kind of airy dining room that swallowed every other pub in England. I spoke with a woman in her early 70s who retired from Norwich 8 years ago. She told me she had spent every summer of her childhood in Sheringham and came back expecting to find it gone, or at least changed beyond recognition. She found it essentially the same. She said there is something that happens when you are in a place that is not performing anything for you. You stop performing too. Within a week of arriving, she had completely stopped thinking about how she looked when she went out. She told me she considers that one of the greatest achievements of her later life. The trade-off is that North Norfolk has started attracting attention, and attention brings price rises. Second home buyers and retirees from London have pushed the median house price well above what it was a decade ago. Local employment is seasonal and limited. The winter population is a fraction of the summer one, and the town can feel quiet to the point of lonely between November and March. But for retirees wanting genuine heritage without extreme isolation, for families wanting a proper English seaside where the fish was caught this morning and the welcome does not come from a customer service manual, Sheringham delivers. A steam train, a donkey on the beach, a pub that never got renovated. Everything your grandparents told you about the English seaside, still there and still true. Number 8. Mablethorpe, Lincolnshire, population approximately 12,000. About 30 miles from Lincoln, roughly 50 minutes drive. Median house price between £110,000 and £175,000. No direct rail link. Here is what you need to understand about Mablethorpe. This is a working-class English seaside town that never once tried to become something else. While every other resort was rebranding, repositioning, adding artisan coffee and boutique accommodation and curated heritage trails, Mablethorpe just kept going. The arcades on the seafront still run 2p machines and coin pushers exactly as they have for 40 years. The Seal Sanctuary has been run by the same family since 1974 and charges admission prices that feel like something has been miscalculated. The annual carnival has run every August since 1923 without a single interruption, not as a tourism event, not as a heritage attraction, because that is what you do in August. You have the carnival. That is the whole reason. You hear the arcades from 2 streets away, the particular electronic warbling of machines that have not updated their sound since 1987. Then the sea, wide and flat, and the colour of pewter under a sky full of cloud. The seafront smells of chips and sunscreen applied with the optimism of people who came prepared to have a good time regardless of what the weather decided. Children are running on the sand, not glancing at phones, actually running the way children ran at every English seaside from the moment England figured out what a seaside was. I talked to a woman in her mid-60s who has run a seafront cafe here for 28 years. She told me journalists come occasionally to write pieces about how sad it is that Mablethorpe never developed into something more. She finds it genuinely funny. Her customers come back every single year. Their children come back. She has served 3 generations of the same families sitting at the same tables. She asked me a question I could not answer. She asked what developing would have given her that she does not already have. The trade-off is real. Services and employment are limited. The town is genuinely remote for Lincolnshire, which is itself genuinely remote by English standards. Broadband is inconsistent. Anything serious medically requires the drive to Lincoln. Winter in a town built entirely for summer is long and very quiet. But for families who want value and simplicity, and a beach that does not charge them for the privilege of standing on it. For retirees who grew up here and want to grow old somewhere that still makes sense to them. For anyone exhausted by the modern pressure to turn every ordinary pleasure into an experience. Mablethorpe delivers. A working-class seaside town that never got the memo about decline. That has been sending it back, unopened, every year since. Number 7. Cromer. North Norfolk, population approximately 8,000. About 23 miles from Norwich, roughly 40 minutes drive. Median terraced house price between £220,000 and £320,000. Served by the Bitton Line. Here is what makes Cromer genuinely extraordinary. The Pavilion Theatre on Cromer Pier runs the only remaining end-of-pier variety show in Britain still operating in its original format. Same stage, same technical rig, comedians and singers, and a finale with a live band, running every summer since before your grandparents were young, in the exact format that was invented for rooms exactly like this one. The pier itself is the real Victorian structure, not a reconstruction. The crab boats still come in directly to the beach. There is no harbour. And the same fishing families have sold crabs from the same stalls for as long as anyone can trace back. In 2019, the town formally rejected a Wetherspoons planning application. Not after a campaign, not after a petition. The town simply did not want one, and said so. You hear the sea through the theatre walls during a performance. The sound mixes with the music and the laughter until it becomes something entirely specific. The sound of the English seaside the way it has always been, half inside and half facing the North Sea wind. The pier railings are cold even in the middle of July. The crabs come in the same white polystyrene trays they have. Always come in. Nobody has updated the packaging because nobody thought to. I spoke with a retired schoolteacher in her early 70s who moved from Hertfordshire 11 years ago. She told me she went to the variety show in her first week, expecting something melancholy, a format running on empty to a half-empty room. The theatre was full. The audience laughed. A comedian made jokes about Norfolk that got the biggest laughs from the Norfolk people who had heard every version of them before and still found them funny. She booked her tickets for the following summer before she walked out of the building that night. The trade-off is that Cromer's reputation has grown, and reputation brings consequences. Prices have risen significantly. Second homes are a genuine community concern. Some of the character that makes the town worth arriving at is under real pressure from the number of people who keep arriving. But for retirees who want cultural life alongside heritage, for families where the variety show is a genuine event that everyone remembers rather than something you endured, Cromer delivers. The last end-of-pier variety show in England, still running every summer, still full, the sea still coming through the walls as if it never agreed to stay outside. Number 6. Sea Houses, Northumberland population, approximately 1,800, about 14 miles from Alnwick, roughly 25 minutes drive. Median house price between £180,000 and £290,000. No rail link. The nearest mainline station is Alnmouth. Here is what makes sea houses genuinely rare. The fish and chip shops here still fry in dripping, rendered beef fat, not vegetable oil. This practice has almost entirely vanished from England. The flavour is entirely different, darker, richer, with a crust that holds differently when the cold air hits it. It is the taste of the English chip shop the way it was before everything got standardised and health certificated into the same neutral flavour everywhere. The boats to the Farne. Islands leave from a harbour that has looked the same since your grandparents' generation. Same painted wooden signs, same diesel smell, same boatmen who tell you about the seals and the puffins with the quiet authority of people who have made this crossing 10,000 times and still find it worth making. One chip shop has had the same menu on the same board since 1971. Cash only. The prices have changed. Everything else has not. You hear the harbour before you reach it. Engines turning over, ropes moving against cleats, the particular metal sound of a working fishing boat being made ready. The water in the harbour is black and green. The Farne Islands sit on the horizon, low and dark, and on a clear day the lighthouse is visible from the seafront. This harbour does not perform its working status for visitors. It simply has one, the same as it always did. I talked to a boatman in his late 50s whose father ran the same Farne Islands trip before him. He told me something I have thought about since. He said the people who come to sea houses are different from the ones who go to the bigger resorts. They want something real, he said. They can tell the difference when they find it. He told me he has never once looked at another seaside town and worried about whether sea houses was keeping up. The trade-off is genuine remoteness. Northumberland is beautiful in the particular way of places that were never persuaded to make themselves easier to get to. Services are limited. The nearest hospital is in Alnwick. The community is small and long established and can be slow to open itself to newcomers. Winter on this coast is not decorative. It is the actual North Sea in January. But for retirees wanting the Northumberland coast without paying the premium that Alnwick now attracts, for serious wildlife visitors, for anyone who once ate chips fried in beef dripping as a child and has spent years quietly looking for that flavour again, Sea Houses delivers a working harbour. Chips that taste the way chips tasted before everything tasted the same. The Farne Islands sitting on the horizon as they always have. It is enough. Number 5. Lyme Regis, Dorset population approximately 4,500, about 25 miles from Dorchester, roughly 40 minutes. Median terraced house price between £380,000 and £520,000. No rail link. Here is what makes Lyme Regis unlike every other town on this list. The heritage here is not architectural. It is not social. It is geological. The cliffs above this town are actively producing 190 million-year-old fossils that fall onto the beach every time it rains. Not replicas in a visitor centre. Real Jurassic ammonites that were inside rock for 190 million years and are now lying on a beach in Dorset waiting for someone to walk past. Local people, not tourist shops, actual people who live here, collect and sell them from fold-up tables on the seafront. You can buy a genuine ammonite for £8 from a man whose children found it last Tuesday. The Cobb, the ancient curved harbour wall that has stood here longer than records exist, is walked by local residents every morning, not because it is a heritage attraction, but because it is where you go in the morning. The town fought off a Tesco Express planning application for 11 consecutive years. Not once, 11 separate times. You hear the waves against the Cobb from the high street. It has a specific sound unlike anything else on the English coast. Not the crash of open surf, not the slap of harbour water, but something between the two, dampened by stone and deep in the chest. After rain, the clay cliffs give off a smell that is unlike anything else in England, something mineral and ancient that you cannot describe to anyone who has not stood here. I spoke with a woman in her early 60s who retired from Bristol 4 years ago. She told me she visited Lyme for a weekend in 2018, got up before anyone else was awake and walked the Cobb alone at dawn, found an ammonite in the rocks below, and drove back to Bristol that evening with the particular feeling of someone who has just been somewhere real. She moved 18 months later. She walks the Cobb every morning now. She said she is not sure she deserved to find it, but she is not giving it back. The trade-off is significant. Lyme Regis is no longer undiscovered, and the prices reflect every person who discovered it before you. The roads in August are genuinely impassable at times. Coastal erosion is an ongoing reality for properties in certain parts of town. But for retirees who can meet the price and want a working town with genuine soul, for families where fossil hunting is not a diversion but an obsession, for remote workers willing to pay for a place that is actually real, Lyme Regis delivers. A town that has walked the same harbour wall every morning for centuries, still walking it. Number 4. Robin Hood's Bay, North Yorkshire, population approximately 1,500. About 15 miles from Whitby, roughly 25 minutes. Median cottage price between £280,000 and £450,000. No rail link. Cars stop at the top of the cliff. The lower village is pedestrian only. Here is what makes Robin Hood's Bay genuinely irreplaceable. The lower village, the old fishing settlement that packed itself into a ravine running directly down to the sea, has no car access at all. There is no road wide enough. There never was, and there never will be. Residents carry shopping down steep cobbled streets by hand. Deliveries come by hand trolley. The village is physically incapable of accommodating the infrastructure of modernisation. Nobody decided to keep it this way. The streets simply made the decision permanent, so the windows stayed original because there was no way to bring the new ones down. The Bay Hotel has stood at the very bottom of the village, a stone's width from the water, since 1890. At high tide in rough weather, waves still occasionally breach the wall and reach the pub doorstep. The landlord has apparently never found this particularly alarming. You hear the sea constantly in the lower village, not as background, as presence. The ravine walls reflect the sound back from multiple directions at once until you cannot tell which way the water is. Cobblestones under your feet, the creak of a rope, wind moving through the narrow gap between houses close enough to touch from both sides with your arms out. In the last hour before the sun drops, the light goes gold against the stone in a way that photographers have been attempting to capture for 80 years without any of them quite getting there. I talked to a man in his late 50s who moved from Manchester 12 years ago. He lives in one of the cottages above the lower village. He told me the inconvenience is not a drawback. The inconvenience is the entire point. People who need convenience leave. People who stay find they stop missing it faster than they expected. He told me he has not locked his front door in 3 years. He said that with the particular satisfaction of a man who grew up in a city and still cannot quite believe this is his life. The trade-off is that what preserves the village also makes it genuinely demanding to live in. Shopping carried by hand, no car at the door, properties that are difficult and expensive to maintain when building materials have to come down the same steep cobbled path as the groceries. This suits a specific kind of person and nobody else. But for retirees who want complete character and are willing to earn it physically, for remote workers who need somewhere that feels genuinely disconnected from everything, for anyone who has understood that the most beautiful places always ask something of you in return, Robin Hood's Bay delivers. A village the modern world could not reach because its streets were too narrow to let it in, preserved entirely by its own inconvenience. Number 3. Aldeburgh, Suffolk population, approximately 2,700. About 24 miles from Ipswich, roughly 35 minutes. Median house price between £350,000 and £550,000. No rail link. The nearest station is Saxmundham. Here is what makes Aldeburgh genuinely extraordinary. The Moot Hall, a Tudor building, timber-framed, 500 years old, is on the beach. Not near the beach, not overlooking the beach. On the beach. Coastal erosion took the land from around it over 4 centuries until the sea arrived at its walls, and the town responded by moving the high street further back and leaving the Moot Hall exactly where it was. It has been sitting at the tide line since the 1600s, still functioning as a museum, one ambitious high tide away from the water. The fish and chip shop on the high street operates on a system that has not changed since the 1960s. You queue at the window You take what they hand you, you walk to the beach wall and you sit in the wind and you eat it. The Aldeburgh Festival, classical music at the highest international level, started by Benjamin Britten and Peter Piers in 1948, still runs every June at the same Snape Maltings 12 miles inland, drawing the finest musicians in the world to the Suffolk marshes because the acoustics and the atmosphere are unlike anywhere else on earth. You hear the shingle before you see the water. Aldeburgh's beach is shingle, and the sound of waves moving through shingle is specific and persistent, a grinding, rolling, continuous sound that is unlike anything else, and that gets into your thinking whether you want it to or not. The light off the North Sea in the late afternoon is flat and particular. Painters have been trying to describe what it does to colour for 100 years, and none of them has finished. I spoke with a retired musician in his early 70s who moved from London 14 years ago, having attended the Aldeburgh Festival for 20 years before that as a visitor who always left wishing he did not have to. He told me Aldeburgh is the only place he has ever lived where the cultural life is more serious than the one he left behind in the city. He walks to a world-class concert and walks home along a beach in the dark with the waves going over his shoes. He told me that the town is expensive and the winters are genuinely brutal and the wind never fully stops. He said that is simply the rent you pay for living somewhere that is actually real. The trade-off is price. Aldeburgh is not affordable and does not pretend to be. The cultural prestige and the beauty and the authenticity are all fully priced in. The winter population drops sharply. From October to April, the town can feel like something between peaceful and deserted, depending on the day. But for retirees who want serious culture alongside genuine heritage, for creative people who respond to East Anglian light and big empty skies, for anyone who understands what they are paying for and has decided it is worth it, Aldeburgh delivers. A Tudor building in the surf, a fish and chip queue on a beach wall, Benjamin Britten's music still playing in a converted Maltings 12 miles inland. All of it still there. All of it real. Number 2. Broadstairs, Kent population approximately 25,000. About 1 hour 20 minutes from London St Pancras on HS1. Median terraced house price between £280,000 and £420,000. Here is what makes Broadstairs genuinely surreal. You board a train at St Pancras travelling at 186 miles an hour, step off 20 minutes walk from the water, and find yourself on Viking Bay. Bucket and spade, deck chairs, Punch and Judy, candy floss. A beach that has not changed since your grandparents honeymooned. The contrast is so complete, it feels like time travel with a return ticket in your pocket. The Dickens House Museum overlooks the bay from the building that inspired Betsy Trotwood's cottage. The annual Dickens Festival sees the entire town dress in Victorian costume for a week, not for tourists, because that is simply what Broadstairs does in June and always has. You hear the train leaving behind you, and 4 minutes later you hear the sea in front of you. Sheltered arc-shaped beach, white chalk cliffs, seagulls on the pier wall, sunscreen and chips arriving on the same breeze. I spoke with a couple in their late 50s who moved from East London 6 years ago, 80 minutes from their adult children, 4 minutes from a 1962 beach. They sold a 2-bedroom Hackney flat for the price of a 4-bedroom Victorian terrace. Their grandchildren always ask to stay longer. The answer is always yes. The trade-off is that Broadstairs is no longer a secret and the prices show it. Summer crowds are real. But for London families wanting genuine accessibility, for retirees wanting connection without isolation, Broadstairs delivers. A hyper-modern train, a Victorian terrace, a 1962 beach, 3 eras in 80 minutes and all of them working. Number 1. Staith's, North Yorkshire population, approximately 1,200. About 10 miles from Whitby, median cottage price between £200,000 and £380,000. Cars stop at the cliff top. Here is why Staith's is number 1. The BBC arrived to film a 1960s period drama. They surveyed every street. They left without changing a single shopfront, a single sign, a single facade. Nothing needed altering. The village already was the 1960s. That is what 60 years of a community refusing every development proposal looks like. The same cobble fishing boats used on this coast for 300 years still launch from the beach the same way. Captain Cook worked here as a teenager before he went to sea and changed the shape of the known world. You hear the stream running through the village to the sea before anything else. Then the sea itself, amplified by cliff walls on both sides. At night, it is actually dark. The stars are startling the way they were before electric light made them forgettable. I spoke with a woman who left Leeds 16 years ago and never questioned it once. She told me every place she ever lived was performing something. Staithes just is. Her husband needed no convincing after his first weekend. The trade-off is real. No services beyond the pub and one shop. North Sea winters that arrive in October and leave when they decide to. But for anyone who has ever looked at a photograph of an old English fishing village and wondered if anything like it still exists, it does. At the end of a road that stops at the sea. So there they are, 10 English seaside towns where the 1960s British holiday never disappeared. It just moved to places most people stopped looking. These towns survived because they were bypassed, not because anyone protected them. The slow broadband, the absent chains, the roads that end at a cliff. These are not problems to fix. They are the preservation mechanism. Fix the inconveniences and you erase the thing that made the place worth coming to. This life suits people tired of manufactured experiences, retirees wanting real community, remote workers wanting genuine escape, families wanting children to understand what England felt like before everything became a brand. It does not suit people needing constant stimulation, or anyone who has romanticised the idea without honestly thinking through a February in Mablethorpe. The British seaside your grandparents described did not vanish. It is in Staithes and Seahouses and Withernsea, waiting for people who want it enough to accept what it costs.